Good evening and welcome to NewsNight. Tonight we'll have all your international, national, and local news. I'm Anthony Durzo.
And I'm Jonah Summers. The debate for the Republican presidential nominee was held this past Wednesday. Find out the details and what was and what wasn't discussed.
And with major bus route changes occurring in downtown, how would it affect your commute around the city?
All this and more coming up on NewsNight.
Multiple attacks were deployed in Pakistan by a terrorist group last Friday, killing nearly 60 civilians. During a procession celebrating the Prophet Muhammad's birthday in southwest Pakistan, a suicide bomber unleashed a device in a crowd of 500 civilians, killing 52 people. A separate attack was unleashed in a hangu at mosque near a police station, also killing 5 additional people, some of whom were police officers. There is no immediate suspect, but suspicion is falling on the Islamic State in Khorasan province, as they have deployed multiple attacks on mosques and civilians in recent years, which is compared to the Pakistan Taliban, who claim they have no involvement, as they stated they do not target places of worship. The U.S. Embassy in Islamabad has since posted on the social media platform X to send condolences and state, quote, "Pakistani people deserve to gather and celebrate their faith without the fear of terror attacks," end quote.
In 2003, Sweden reported one of the lowest number of gun-related deaths per capita in the world. In 2021, Sweden reported that 4 in every million people died from gun violence. In 2023, more than 60 people died from gun violence in Sweden. However, that number is only growing. The root of the violence stems from a gang called the Foxtrot Network, which is separated into 2 groups that are rivals to each other. Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson stressed the importance of taking down the gang violence because of the number of children and innocent bystanders who have been affected. In September, a total of 11 people died from gun violence, which tops the average number of gun-related deaths per month in Sweden. The only way to describe this gun violence without giving explicit details of ongoing cases would be terroristic. The Swedish military has been called by Prime Minister Kristersson to aid police in halting the rise in gang violence. Kristersson went public about what he thinks the cause of the rising violence exactly is. The Prime Minister blamed the former left office of Sweden and their poor immigration policies that allowed a culture accepting of gangs into the nation. Sweden has been known for being overly welcoming to refugees, hosting more than 270,000 of them in 2022. This is the policy that Kristersson is referring to. Former Prime Minister Magdalena Andersson said she was open to allowing military involvement in the police force, despite arguing against joining forces in the past. Andersson stressed this sentiment by saying, quote, "This is not Sweden. This is not how Sweden is supposed to be," end quote.
The UK-based right-wing news source GB News has come under fire while investigating 3 station speakers in the midst of controversy. This started with broadcaster Lawrence Fox and Dan Wotan on Wotan's live show, in which Fox made derogatory claims against fellow journalist Ava Evans. He referenced that any, quote, self-respecting man, end quote, should not date her, and that she is, quote, spoon-fed oppression, end quote. Both Wotan and Fox have been suspended from the network, as well as broadcaster Calvin Robinson for supporting Wotan. The channel itself is being investigated for breaching Ofcom, UK's communications regulator, 3 times since their start in June of 2021 for live accounts of misinformation. After a run that shocked the entire world, the U.S. soldier who fled to North Korea has returned to the United States. Reporter Logar Abdist has the details on his return.
U.S. Army Private Travis King arrived back in the United States on September 28th, Defense Department officials say. This comes weeks after King illegally crossed the demilitarized zone into North Korea on July 18th. The day before this incident, King was scheduled to board a plane back to the U.S. to face disciplinary measures after being charged with assault in Seoul. King instead left the airport after being escorted by Army escorts. He joined a tour of the demilitarized zone where he then bolted across the border. It is still unclear why King chose to cross the border. The North Korea state news agency has reported that King, quote, harbored ill feelings against the inhumane mistreatment and racial discrimination within the U.S. Army, end quote. After being returned to the U.S., King is expected to undergo treatment at Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio, Texas. Rachel Van Landingham, a national security law expert, says about potential charges against King, quote, based on their track record, I think they're going to court-martial him, end quote. Van Landingham also added that the evidence against King seems overwhelming, but that he could also be discharged without charges.
A mysterious phenomenon of so-called fairy circles have been found at hundreds of cities worldwide. Fairy circles are round, bare, disc-like shapes in the dirt. These circles were previously only spotted in South African Namib Desert and the Australian outback, but now, thanks to a new study conducted by artificial intelligence, 263 cities across 15 new locations of these circles have been discovered. These cities span across 3 continents, and scientists have found that these fairy circle-like patterns have helped to stabilize ecosystems. The circles help increase an area's resistance to floods and extreme droughts. Fernando Maestre, an ecologist at the University of Alicante in Spain, the author of this study, said, quote, "We discovered fairy circles in many other places that we did not know existed before, because most of the work on this topic has been carried out in just 2 countries, Namibia and Australia," end quote. Other researchers say that until fieldwork can be performed, any circular bare patches remain to be designated as true fairy circles. After the break, hear about one of America's most infamous cold cases. May have just been solved. Don't go away.
The Las Vegas Police Department have arrested and charged the former leader of the Southside Compton Crips street gang for the murder of Tupac Shakur. Shakur was shot 4 times in a drive-by shooting in 1996 and died in the hospital shortly after. It's said that the former leader, Dwayne Keefe Davis, age 60, was the one that ordered the attacks. This was after Davis's nephew and Shakur got into a physical fight outside of a casino in the weeks before his murder. The Las Vegas police said they reinvigorated the case in 2018. In a recent statement from Sheriff Kevin McMahill says, quote, there have been many people who did not believe that the murder of Tupac Shakur was important to this police department. I'm here to tell you that simply was not the case, end quote.
Since the start of the new Congress in January, the U.S. has passed a total of only 14 bills or resolutions since then. And according to CNN, that is the lowest number since more than 50 years ago. The government barely escaped a shutdown this past Saturday, but what does that even mean for the people? Among many other inconveniences, 452 national parks were amidst the shutdown because of the struggling economy. Had the government shut down, national parks could have seen a cut of $70 million every single day that the parks are closed. Not to mention thousands of jobs would have been lost in the process. According to the National Parks Conservation Association, quote, the shutdown threat is caused in part by the U.S. House's latest funding bills, which do not honor the bipartisan budget agreement passed earlier this year. This includes an unrealistic and damaging proposed cut of $433 million to the Park Service's budget in its most recent funding bill, end quote, thus resulting in job loss as well as park attraction. Not only would the parks be affected, but many local businesses located around the parks themselves as well. National parks employ more than 350,000 people a year and contribute over $800 billion in overall economic output. This includes all park revenue as well as small business revenue around the area that these parks are in. There are 0 national parks not at risk of shutting down because every park is federally owned. Well, the good news is that the government did not shut down, but coming that close to it scared the livelihoods of thousands of homes.
A judge ruled last Tuesday that former President Donald Trump committed fraud as he built his real estate empire that could no longer allow him to make major decisions about the future of his marquee properties in his home state of New York. The judge found that Trump's Florida Mar-a-Lago club, for example, was overvalued on one financial statement by as much as 2,300%. The former president also lied about the size of his Trump Tower penthouse apartment, claiming it was nearly 3 times its actual size and worth $327 million. The order revokes Trump's business licenses, making it nearly impossible for some of his companies to operate in New York if the appeal is not successful. The judge will also weigh if a $250 million penalty is to be issued to the non-jury trial. After coming terrifyingly close to a shutdown, the U.S. Congress was able to reach a temporary deal, with a history being made in result. Reporter Brendan McNamara has the details. Brendan.
Thanks, Anthony. With the new budget deal far from reality and the looming threat of a government shutdown, Congress passed a bill over the weekend to keep the government funded at the current levels for the next 45 days. The deal came together after House Speaker Kevin McCarthy realized he could not satisfy the demands of the radicals in the Republican conference, opting to cut a deal with Democrats instead. The bill was put together at the last minute and does not include any new aid for Ukraine, a point of complaint for Democrats. However, most of them voted for the bill anyway. With the compromise on this bill, Republican Representative Matt Gaetz of Florida threatened to bring a vote to remove McCarthy from the speakership. This threat eventually came to fruition, with Kevin McCarthy becoming the first Speaker of the House to be voted out in U.S. history. Action in the House is put on pause until Republicans attempt to vote for a new Speaker next week. Reporting for NewsNight, I'm Brendan McNamara.
On Friday, September 29th, Governor Kathy Hochul declared a state of emergency in, quote, New York City, the Hudson Valley, and Long Island in response to the significant, dangerous rainfall that is currently impacting the region, end quote. New York received up to 8 inches of rain in one day, creating extremely dangerous flash floods that left many people's basements and apartments flooded and subways shut down. Mayor Eric Adams reported there were 15 rescues from cars and 3 rescues from people's apartments. The city is slowly drying out, but officials continue to urge people to stay inside and off of the dangerous streets. Republicans recently held their second presidential nominee debate, with many topics and people being discussed. Reporter Loger Abdis has more. Loger?
The second Republican presidential debate occurred on Wednesday, September 27th at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in Simi Valley, California. Top policies for debate included gun violence and immigration, while abortion was noticeably avoided by both the moderators and the candidates themselves. The debate was highlighted by the second consecutive absence of former President Donald Trump from the stage. However, this did not stop the former president's rivals from taking shots at him during the debate. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie criticized Trump for, quote, hiding behind his golf clubs, end quote. The Daily Caller, a primarily right-wing newspaper, also reported that Trump does not plan to attend the third Republican debate on November 8th. Among the attending candidates, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is currently polling second after former President Trump. Former President Mike Pence questioned DeSantis on both the lack of a death penalty given to the Parkland High School mass murderer and his inflation of Florida's budget by 30% during DeSantis' tenure. DeSantis chose not to respond to either of these provocations, however.
After more than 30 years of service, Senator Dianne Feinstein has passed away. Reporter Brendan McNamara has more details on her passing and career.
United States Senator Dianne Feinstein of California, a centrist Democrat, passed away last Thursday at the age of 90. Throughout her decades-long career, she has been a champion for women's rights and a bipartisan stalwart. She was the first female mayor of San Francisco and was originally elected to the Senate in 1992. Over the years, she became famous for being a champion of liberal priorities while also working with Republicans. Over the past few years, there have been calls for her to resign due to her declining health. Last year, a few of her staff members anonymously called for her to step down, claiming that her memory was fading and she could not do the job. Earlier this year, she was absent from the Senate for 2 months after a bout with shingles. When she returned in May, she was only voting occasionally and would frequently use a wheelchair. She also faced calls to resign so that the younger generation would have a chance to get into Congress. After her death, many of her colleagues, both Republican and Democratic, praised her for her work and said their final goodbyes. With her seat now open, California Governor Gavin Newsom has announced that he will nominate LaFonza Butler to take her place. Reporting for NewsNight, I'm Brendan McNamara.
After the break, hear about the opening of a new location to one of Pittsburgh's most iconic restaurants. We will be right back.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back to
Daybreak.
Daybreak. Chicken Guy opened in PPG Place on Monday.
The bridge would open before the 1 year marks.
To check out the 20th annual gingerbread display.
Share with you this week's ray of sunshine.
We are still somehow hanging around in the playoff.
It gives Georgia Democrats some hold onto the governing body.
200,000 people still in harm's way.
This weather is perfect for those cozy nights indoors.
A Westmoreland County man was sentenced to 25 to 50 years in prison this Friday for an attempted kidnapping that occurred back in January. The suspect, Frank Springer, targeted an 18-year-old jogger in Ligonier Township. According to police, Springer was following her and using a gun to threaten her into his truck. While she fought against him, bystanders stopped to help as he fled the scene. Springer was found guilty for attempted kidnapping, attempted homicide, 2 counts of aggravated assault, reckless endangerment, unlawful restraint, terroristic threats, and simple assault. District Attorney Nicole Ziccarelli said in a news release, quote, "Today was not only justice and closure for the victim and her family, but it was justice and closure for this whole community whose sense of security was rattled since that day," end quote.
Pittsburgh residents can look forward to a brighter and cleaner future as the city takes a bold step towards sustainability. In a groundbreaking initiative, Mayor Ed Gainey announced that Pittsburgh is committing to becoming a carbon neutral by 2030, setting an example for environmental leadership among American cities. The plan includes efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from transportation, industry, and buildings, while also promoting renewable energy sources. Mayor Gainey emphasized that this commitment aligns with Pittsburgh's proud tradition of innovation and resilience. As part of this initiative, the city will be investigating improved public transportation, expanding green spaces, and partnering with local businesses to adopt eco-friendly practices. The goal is not only to combat climate change, but also to create a more sustainable and livable city for all residents. This announcement has garnered support from environmental activists and community leaders who see it as a crucial step towards addressing climate change and improving the quality of life in Pittsburgh. Achieving carbon neutrality within the next decade will undoubtedly present challenges, but it's a testament to the city's determination to lead by example. According to the BDC network, the carbon cut will be equivalent to taking more than 45,000 cars off of the road. Pittsburgh's commitment to a greener future is a promising sign of progress.
Well, the new downtown Burlington opened its doors this past Friday. The new store, which is now located at the old Kaufman's Graham Shopping Center on Smithfield Street, is a relocation from the previous store on 6th Avenue. The new Burlington is next to the Five Below that opened this past March and the Target that opened in summer of last year. The new store has all your favorite items from old Lation-like clothing, toys, and home decor. Burlington announced the first 100 customers 18 years old and older received a $10 gift card to the store. They also donated $5,000 to the teachers at the Pittsburgh Wheel pre-K through 5 school via the national organization adoptaclassroom.org. The new Burlington is open 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday and 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Sunday. A brand new Permanis restaurant has opened up along McKnight Road, with the restaurant having a wildly successful grand opening. First-time NewsNight reporter Spencer Angel has the details on the opening.
Hundreds of people lined the doors Tuesday night for the grand opening of the new Permanis in McIntyre Square in Ross Township. Celebrating 90 years in business, they were excited to bring Permanis up north to a new location. CEO Adam Gollum stated, quote, "Most businesses don't open their doors then immediately give away the house to start their first day, but we've never really been one to stick to the rules, and we have been focused on growing on McKnight Road for years, so there's no better way to celebrate," end quote. The new Permanis joins in with Wahlburgers, Dave & Buster's, and other popular chains at the block. Doors opened around 10 a.m. Wednesday, with the first 100 people getting a free sandwich for a year. The 16th person in line, a man from Shaler Township, described, quote, "It's really good time. We are all here for the same reason. We have good taste with a good restaurant," end quote.
Last Friday, Point Park's freshman dance majors had a very unique performance opportunity to work with the Violins of Hope project. The project is centered around a collection of violins, violas, and cellos that belong to and were played by Jewish people during World War II and in concentration camps. 102 instruments have been collected and restored through the Violins of Hope project. The Violins of Hope travel around the world for exhibitions and concerts and are about to begin their exhibition in Pittsburgh for 6 whole weeks. On Friday, they partnered with Point Park University dancers and the Pittsburgh Playhouse to put on a performance dedicated to the project. The performance began outside the Playhouse on Forbes Avenue, and then the audience followed the dancers as they moved into the lobby of the Playhouse, where they were accompanied by music and traveled throughout the open space. After the dance performance, there was a question and answer session with the chair, co-chair, and project manager of Violins of Hope Greater Pittsburgh. The Pittsburgh exhibition will be held at the Posner Center on the Carnegie Mellon campus from October 7th to November 21st. The exhibition is free to the public. You just have to register online at violinsofhopepittsburgh.com to reserve your spot. Additionally, you will be able to find a professional violinist representing Violins of Hope playing music in the Pittsburgh Playhouse lobby before the fall dance concert show on Sunday, October 8th.
Major changes are coming to the Pittsburgh bus system. Some of the Oakland routes have already been changed this past Sunday. These changes are being made in preparation for PRT's new University line, and reporter Addison Deal has the story.
In a city like Pittsburgh, public transport is key to getting residents where they need to go to. But with plans for the rapid transit bus line coming up, people in downtown are stuck wondering how they're going to get to work today.
It affects my commute pretty heavily. I live in Oakland, so them changing the buses is kind of sucks, I'm not gonna lie.
Jake is just one of the dozens of commuters to Point Park University who rely on the bus to get to class every day. But the bus line he takes from Oakland to downtown has been halted since October 1st.
But if they wanted to do that, I just don't know why they would take away buses from another route to try and fix that, because now it's just going to make the commute even longer. And also the 61 and the 71 are like probably the most consistent bus routes, the quickest too, and the change is going to affect a lot of people's commutes.
Despite minor news coverage, most bus riders say that this came as a surprise to them.
No, I didn't really know until they put up these flyers on the actual bus stops. They never made an actual announcement about the buses changing. They just put the flyer up.
Bus lines 61D and 71A, C, and D are now only serving Oakland and do not make stops in Uptown or downtown. While commuters are struggling with the changing bus lines, Pittsburgh Regional Transit says that the rapid transit line will be a much better change.
Currently, there is an abundance of service in the corridor, and oftentimes we see buses bunching. So meaning one bus comes right after the other, everybody gets on the first bus, and then the second bus is empty. This will sort of smooth out that traffic or those travel patterns.
The plans for the rapid transit bus line are not set to conclude until 2025, but the lines running from Oakland to downtown have stopped running since October 1st. In downtown Pittsburgh, this is Addison Deal reporting for Point News.
Now, the 61A, B, C, and the 71
So in
B
2020
buses will still offer routes through Oakland. The delay should be expected due to the increase in people taking the now more select buses. For the most up-to-date bus routes, viewers should go to rideprt.org.
A local mall has recently paid off its massive debt. However, locals in the surrounding area aren't necessarily happy with this. Reporter Spencer Angel has the details. Spencer?
The Pittsburgh Mills in Tarentum has finally paid off its $11.2 million in tax debt to Fraser Township. After becoming vacant since 2019, it remains to only hold a few stores such as AT&T, Dick's Sporting Goods, Panera Bread, and holds home to the Pittsburgh Scarehouse as well. Locals from the area stressed how the owner of the mall, Namdar Realty Group, has failed to, quote, produce someone that can reimagine and breathe new life into the property in ways that create sustainable jobs and complements the success of surrounding commercial properties, end quote. Namdar Realty Group stated how the firm highly values the mall and surrounding communities, but still leaves locals with an uncertain future for the Mills.
After a 3-year pause, student loan payments are restarting this month, worrying many former students about how this will change their financial situation. Reporter Jonah Summers has more details about the payments and the people it will affect.
2020 student loan payments, well, they came with a pause during the COVID-19 pandemic. But on Monday, those payments had resumed. At the beginning of Joe Biden's presidency in 2020, he put in motion a plan to forgive all student loan debt. But the Supreme Court, they decided to resume those payments anyways.
If I had that ability to talk to my younger self, I would have never, ever gone for that law degree. These student loans have been a noose around my neck for 20 years.
I was doing pretty well. I was finally able to afford the things I needed, such as how expensive the parking is downtown now. And that kind of just put a wrench in my plans for next semester and my last semester at university.
According to a survey by CNET, 70% of borrowers will have to change their spending needs to accommodate for payments resuming at the beginning of October.
It's just going to be really hard for Americans to balance one extra bill, basically. I mean, that one extra bill is really going to hurt a lot of people.
One method that is becoming very popular amongst borrowers is an income-driven repayment plan. This plan will allow borrowers to pay off their student loans as they earn a certain income. Much like other investments, the income-driven repayment plan will give borrowers a set date where if they contribute a controlled amount per month, their loans will be paid off by that date. I spoke with students at Point Park University, and they stressed to me the importance of finding a financial plan that would set them up in the future to pay off those student loans. But here's the twist, is sometimes those loans won't get paid off for another 30 years, which means that borrowers, they would have to find a plan that would cut back all of their leisure spending, which is something that most Americans spent all of their money on during the COVID-19 pandemic. In Pittsburgh, this has been Jonah Summers with Point News.
Now, even with President Biden's recent cancellation of another $9 billion in student debt, many borrowers will still struggle with their loan payments. Only time will tell how long these people will be indebted to their loans. After the break, find out about a strange flamingo and its recovery, plus your weather for the upcoming week.
Regular physical activity is one of the most important things you can do for your health. The benefits of physical activity include brain health, weight management, reducing disease, strengthening your bones and muscles, and improving your ability to do everyday activities. So, it's time to get up and be active.
Have been spotted in some odd areas days after Hurricane Idalia blew through Florida. The usually southern-bound birds have recently been spotted as far north as Wisconsin. One of those travelers was a flamingo named Peaches, who was found in deep water off the Florida's Gulf Coast. Peaches was found floating in the water, seemingly exhausted. The pink bird was scooped up and brought to the Seaside Bird Sanctuary for rehabilitation. Peaches has since made a full recovery and has been released back into the wild. This fine feathered friend has been tagged and is being tracked. The bird is being tracked to see if breeding populations of flamingos will return to the state. Flamingos have been locally extinct in the area since the 1900s. Peaches is only the second American flamingo to be tagged in the United States. Well, Pittsburgh has been experiencing a very hot start to the fall season. Our first-time weather reporter, Leslie Krebs, is here to keep you up to date on this week's weather phenomena. Leslie.
The beginning of fall could not look more like summer. This past week, we've experienced temperatures reaching up to the mid and high 80s, and that's still the case for tomorrow's forecast as well. Tomorrow's temperature is going to reach a high of 84 degrees. Throughout the day, there will be beautiful sunshine and very minimal cloud coverage. By Thursday night, however, the forecast is predicted to change significantly, with periodic showers and a dramatic cool down that is to take place over the next few days. That being said, let's take a look, shall we? As we roll into this weekend, prepare to see plenty of rain and cooler temperatures. Friday and Saturday, we'll see showers throughout the day, and we'll begin to see a big dip in temperature dropping to the low 50s come Sunday. The remainder of the week, we'll continue to see temperatures in the low 50s and particularly cloudy days. That's all I have for you this week. Now back to the desk.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of NewsNight. If you want to see more, check out our social media pages on both Facebook and Instagram at UView Television.
You can also check out more episodes on our YouTube channel or our website, uview.pointpark.edu. I'm Jonah Summers.
And I'm Anthony Durza. From everyone here at NewsNight, thank you for watching and have a great evening.